Let me tell you a story. It's a story about a planeswalker named Lord Windgrace. As usual, he used the power of Dredge in a big graveyard. But in this unusual case, he did so to let his creatures attack for lethal damage almost out of nowhere. Besides mana ramp, Windgrace would start by putting Dredge cards in the graveyard by tutor. Sometimes he'd discard Dredge cards already in hand to begin dredging cards into the grave as soon as possible. And other times he'd mill his own library with Hermit Druid, Grizzly Salvage, and Satyr Wayfinder. These also provided needed land, because many later draws were replaced by Dredge. Windgrace would play reusable effects that combined drawing and discarding cards. He preferred those that allowed discarding first, because those allowed a Dredge creature in hand to be discarded and dredged back to hand as part of the same activation. Tortured Existence was used to put Dredge creatures in grave in response to a card draw effect at instant speed, while returning another creature from grave to hand. Between milling and discard, the creature's Anger and Brawn would usually wind up in the graveyard, granting haste and trample to all Windgrace's creatures, which was very important to the final part of his plan. Other good spells to play around this time included Countryside Crusher, who both fed the graveyard and was pumped by Dredge activations, and various kinds of removal to disrupt opponents. Mana ramp, discard, and disruption creatures could also be used as blockers to buy time in the mid-game for the graveyard to grow. Dredge and Windgrace would also soak up damage, buying more time. To secure victory, Windgrace would cast or reanimate one of several creatures that could kill one or more opponents that turn if enough of the right cards were in his graveyard. These included Kessig Cagebreakers, which when attacking created a tapped and attacking 2/2 token for each creature in Windgrace's graveyard. And Worm Harvest could make a 1/1 token for each land in the grave, each time it was cast or recast. Lord of Extinction and Apocalypse Demon were both usually able to kill any opponent with a single hit. Their having haste and or trample made not dying to them when they appeared much harder. One non-combat strategy was to life drain opponents using Jared Golgari Lichlord to sacrifice the Lord of Extinction, the Demon, the Crusher, or the Troll. Goblin Bombardment could also be used to turn large numbers of token creatures into direct damage as a deterrent to wraths or to help bring down the life total of the player who couldn't be attacked. And that is how the power of Dredge, Dredge enablers, and spells that become lethal with a large graveyard would win battles.